Have you ever wondered if you should consider an ARM or an adjustable rate mortgage or just focus on the fixed rate? I've got Molly Zimmerman back with me today to break it down, and I'll also share what's happening in the Twin Cities housing market. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or just staying put, this update could change how you plan your next move. I'm Erica Carlson. I'm with a boutique brokerage called Bricks Real Estate. I help people, of course, all over the Twin Cities, but I specialize in the Western Metro. If you learn anything new today, I'd love for you to join my growing channels, whether you found me on YouTube, Instagram, or my professional Facebook page. Now, if you're ready to get started or you have a question about anything we're going over in this video today, the link below will get you our contact information. And if you've seen me in the past and you've looked at that link, I just want to give you a heads up. I have significantly changed what that link looks like and the information in there. So I encourage you to click it again to check it out. My goal for 2025 is to be refreshing that information on an occasion because I do try to make these videos weekly. So I am going to try to put some different things in there to bring value to you and things that you might find interesting. Why don't we jump into that Twin Cities data? I'm going to give you a very quick overview, and then I'm going to deep dive into the seasonality and how that works. We'll bring Molly on towards the end.
So we're going to start with the bricks meter, but I'm going to point out that we're going to deep dive on this. So notice it's 4.14, which does put us at a balanced market. Let's move on to inventory, which has really not changed over this time last year. It's only a 0.2% gain. Interest rates are at around 7.125%. That's no discount points. That's not a particular lender. I'm not a loan officer. So this is just giving you very generic information. Your situation could be different depending on you and the lender you're choosing, of course. And then average days on market, this is Twin Cities at large, is 48, almost 49 days. So if you're seeing a house that's about a month and a half on market, that's very normal. It shouldn't be alarming to you as a buyer. If you're selling a house, you shouldn't be upset if you're going into, almost your month two. If it's getting past that point, again, there's too many nuances, the city you're in, the type of property. If it's very excessive or you feel like it is, you should feel like you should be able to talk to your realtor about a price adjustment, change of marketing strategy. Is there some sort of thing that is striking people, there's a smell in the house or something like that. But anyway, I want to digress because I do want to deep dive into this market meter topic.
So I got here by going to brickstwincities.com, and the front page, if you just scroll down a little bit, there'll be the market meter that you can click on and you can see this in real time. So you don't have to just depend on this video. I believe they update it weekly. I'm obviously not the person doing it. This is such an amazing resource if you're curious about how real estate moves, how things are going. Just such an excellent resource for everybody to be aware of. Obviously it's not common knowledge that this exists, so that's why I'm bringing it to you. The other day I got a YouTube comment from somebody who said, how did I know that we were going to go from a buyer's market to a seller's market? And they were linking this into the greater real estate world at large, like interest rates, et cetera. How do you know it's going to change? Well, there's a real pattern to real estate that I'm calling seasonality. I'm sort of making that up. I don't know if other people say it that way. And what I'm talking about is these peaks and valleys you're seeing on the screen. And so in simple words, these peaks are when we're typically in more of a seller's market. And the lows, and hopefully you can see my mouse here, are when we're in more of a buyer's market, and everything else is sort of in between with varying degrees. And of course, the way this would impact you, whether you're on one side or the other of the transaction, you're going to feel it both ways, right? So if you're in a red hot seller's market, like we're seeing here, this is March 31 of 2021. This was pretty much the most extreme. It was spring. And it was 2021 when interest rates were really low, historically low, in fact. And so everybody that was curious or wanted to move was out there. It made it extremely hard to get houses under contract. And that was when people would list a house and like an hour later, they'd have like 20 offers. It was completely insane, 100,000 or more over asking because there wasn't enough inventory. So this whole chart you're looking at, again, is about supply and demand. At these peak points is when demand from buyers is the highest. So as a seller, this is of course when you're trying to time it. If you want top dollar, you want a quick sale, you want to focus on the peaks. In the reverse, if you're buying a house, you're interested in the lows. What comes up in the lows? Fall, winter, before Christmas, to be really blunt, before Thanksgiving. When it gets cooler outside, people, I don't know, they just stop thinking about moving. They don't want to move. They're not thinking about it. There's probably lots of reasons. We've talked about these things in the past. So if you're looking at this on your own, and you're wondering like how you read it a little bit more than just peaks and valleys, in the paragraph it explains, and on our chart before it said we were at 4.1, and I can verify that by just holding my mouse over the top, and you can see it's 4.14 as of 2 days ago. And so it's just moving us out of a buyer's market, which was a 2 to 3.99, and we've just gone over here to stable market. So I hope you can see that. So based on all these past years, because this goes back to 2019, and I do have the ability to tie into things that go back further in time than this, but this is just such a nice and easy way for you to access this. You can see, okay, 1130 was the bottom, 930, 1130 was the bottom, like pretty much consistently 930, 1130, the bottoming out, which is a stupid way of saying that. It's just the way it looks visually. But what I mean is that's where the least amount of buyer demand is. Now, in all fairness, this is when inventory also comes down. So it, as a buyer, you might feel like, well, right, but there's less for me to choose from. You aren't wrong, okay? So that is a frustration, but that's often when the investors, the people who are looking for opportunities, a lot of times sellers are going to wait until the spring. And so the people that are selling their house during this season oftentimes like have a really strong need to sell. And so I hate to say it, but if it's like a divorce, a death, something where there's like a lot, maybe someone lost a job and can't make the payment, they need to sell the house. This is why the investors come out at this time, because they're not competing against every other person that's thinking about moving, which we know is the last 2 weeks of March and the first 2 weeks of April. So if you're asking me, this is always the answer. There again, there's always going to be exceptions, because here we are in 2020 and 2021, right? Like there's going to be exceptions at times. But if you're looking for historical knowledge, that's when you're going to look to sell. And if you're buying, maybe that's not when you want to buy, because you don't want all this competition for the property. So yes, interest rates matter. Just to answer the YouTube comment from the other day, this is the year, like this, let me find. So this is 11/30 of 2023, and it's inching up, right? And it gets to the peak here, March 31st, very predictable, of 2024. As we calm down, it comes out of that seller's market into a buyer's market over time, and now it's creeping back up. And so in terms of interest rate, yes, this year the interest rates were a little bit higher, but they were higher this year too. And so it doesn't fully explain the demand coming down. And I'm not surprised by this little peak here. This year is really what it is. It's a year. It's lower because we know that this year we had far fewer sellers than many. Let me say that again. We had far fewer. We had far few sales overall. And I've heard different things depending on if you're looking at national data, local data. But this was a very slow year for many people. The sales just weren't there like they had been in previous years. And I can tell you, I can see it. This peak doesn't peak as much as this one. This doesn't peak as much as this one. But notice it's still going up and down because the seasonality is very predictable. And I do hope that helps somebody out there that's wondering how this all works. Why do we talk about whether it's a buyer's or seller's market? We're trying to prepare you. So to conclude, if you're a seller, you're trying to probably get top dollar, sell quickly, focus on the peaks. Buyers should be focusing on the valleys or the dips. If you're trying to stay out of competition, if you have to shop during the peak, it's fine. A great real estate agent is going to help you. Same if you have to sell on the buyer's side. Again, it's not impossible. The thing I haven't told you guys is that real estate sells all year round. There are slower months in here for sure. It could take longer. You might not get quite as much money, or vice versa on the buying side. But again, there's always sales in here, no matter what the news is reporting. So I do hope that helps. Let me bring Molly on now, and we will talk about what an ARM or an adjustable rate mortgage is versus fixed.
Thanks again for having me, Erica. Yeah, and so the fixed rate mortgage is when you're basically locking into an interest rate for the full term of the loan. So if you lock in that interest rate, that principal and interest payment is going to be the same from payment one all the way through payment, whatever your term is. Most fixed rate or fixed terms are on 30 or 15 years. So that's like your typical payment schedule.
Right. I was gonna say, don't say the number. Like nobody wants to see their schedule on their payments,
No.
right? So then what's an ARM or an adjustable rate mortgage?
So an ARM would be if you are fixed into an interest rate for a certain period of time, but then it's going to adjust based off of what the market has done. So there's typically like let's just say that you lock into, and I'm going to throw out an example right now. If you were able to get an ARM right now at 6%, I'm just throwing a number out there, you're typically going to be locked in for a 5 or 7 year term. That's the most normal. And then after that, it can adjust. And typically at that point, the max adjustment is going to be maybe 2% at a time to a lifetime max of 5%. So just thinking in terms of you might be at 6% for example, 5 or 7 years, but throughout the life of the loan, it could potentially go up to 11%.
Right.
But it's not going to say the same.
And I know we haven't really talked about this before. So just briefly, I mean, I think that overall, when you say ARM to most people, there's honestly like a lot of discomfort. I don't know how popular they are right now. But I think like talking this out loud, there's a time and a place. Like if you know you're not going to be in a property very long, maybe it's a better financial decision for you than committing to the standard 15, 30-year mortgage. Definitely something. I know there was like this little period of time during COVID where I felt like ARMs, when I say popular, that was like a very steep choice of a word. I might have had one client that picked it, honestly. I'll have to check in on him. But, I mean, obviously you do this every day. Did you notice there was like it ebbs and flows when people are more interested in ARMs?
It does tend to ebb and flow. And I think part of it is just based off of like, how is the adjustable rate pricing? So there was a period during COVID where the ARM rate was, it made sense for people to look into. But on the flip side, then we had an inverted yield curve in which, without going into a ton of detail, basically we were at some point seeing ARMs pricing out higher than fixed rates. So it's a product that kind of comes and goes. And I feel like I tend to see it the most if we've got somebody who might be, let's say that you're moved for a job. It's like a relocation and the plan is 3 to 5 years, but your company kind of backs you up with your expenses. We see those types of, personally, I see a lot of people like that would be more interested in an ARM product, knowing that they're probably going to get moved again and they're not going to be, in that loan for 30 years. It's a short-term living situation, maybe.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point. I think unfortunately, because of the Great Recession, I'm like, what do we call that period? The 09, 10. I think ARMs did get a dirty name, and it's not really the product. I mean, I don't know. I don't mean to say the wrong thing. I just don't think it's apples to apples. I think it's worth having a conversation about and figuring out what the right product is for you, versus just like having a knee-jerk reaction. Because that's what I normally see from people is kind of like, oh, ARM, we don't do those anymore. And it's like, well, no, there's still an option. Like there might not be the right option for you. So well, okay. Well, if you have any questions about this type of product, anything else, I know Molly would love to take your phone call. You can reach her at mollysimmerman.com. You can certainly reach out to me and I'll do my best to answer the questions, but I'm certainly not the financial guru. Thank you so much for joining us today, Molly.
Thank you.
Again, the link below is going to bring you to a variety of resources. My buyer and seller guide. No, you don't have to give me your email or anything to get that information. If you want a neighborhood market report, I am going to need your information because I need to know what address we're focusing on or street or something. You will go to a form and fill that out if you're interested in that. Highly recommend giving that to you. Even if you're buying, we can set it up in a different way. If you don't have a particular address for me, you probably are going to have to reach out and tell me that so we can make that fit for you. I also have like home affordability calculators, Molly's information, mine. lots of information, and my goal is to add new things and extract things as time goes on. So again, if you've looked at that link before and you're thinking, oh, I've seen this before, I did make some updates. It does look different. I always welcome your feedback to help me make future videos, and I appreciate that you've joined me. I'll see you next Wednesday.